And when I was thinking about this, the reason or the way that this came about is because Joe Heron here at Copper and Kings came to us with the proposal, with the idea, what do you think about doing, some kind of writerly, kind of bookish, kind of liquor-y thing in Louisville at some point, maybe before Christmas, because people are looking for gifts and stuff like that. And I think everybody they approached were like, sure, why not? What's the worst that could happen? Well, this weekend we find out what's the worst that could happen by inviting a bunch of drinks writers, liquor writers to a distillery several weeks before Christmas and unleashing them upon your city. So what we're going to do, just to kind of give you the lay of the land of the way this is going to roll, it's going to be really casual. We have people, we have books, we have all kinds of things. We're going to have conversations up here. We're going to have 3 of them tonight and another 2 tomorrow with some of the writers who are representing here over the course of the weekend. These are going to be just kind of informal conversations, looking at some of the, delving a little bit more into some of the topics, some of the details, some of the directions that these writers go. So like I said, 3 of those tonight, 2 of those tomorrow. Quick show of hands, who in this room likes to drink? There better be every hand up. The bar is back there. A lot of you have figured that out. Please go find it at your leisure. Also, show of hands, who in this room knows how to read? Awesome. This sign says bookstore. If you go back that way and down the hall, there's someone sitting back there wondering if any of us are going to go back there and buy something from her. Please go back there and buy a book. Bring it up to one of the writers. Bring it up to many of the writers. Buy lots of books. That's why we're here. And kind of make this thing happen. Make it good and fun and all kind of Christmassy holiday kind of season for all of us. Before we get into the first conversation, let's just kind of talk about why we're here. I mean, first off, why are we talking about drinks? And why are those of us who do this writing about drinks? The obvious answer, of course, is, have you seen the world out there right now? Oh my God, why are you not drinking? But on another level, because the world of drinks is fascinating and it's fun and there's some great stories. They're great avenues to explore, whether your interest is more from a culinary perspective or from a historical perspective or kind of cultural trends or just things that are fun and that taste good. I think all of us come at this from different directions and sometimes from many directions at one time. We're going to explore what some of those directions are. To kick off this series of conversations, we have 2 of the more prolific drinks writers working today. Cara Newman, I have honestly forgotten how many drinks books you've written because it's so many. Six cocktail books at this point. Her latest is Cocktails with a Twist. And when you're not writing one of your many drinks books, you're also a spirits editor at Wine Enthusiast Magazine. So Cara Newman. There we go. And in conversation with Cara tonight, when the food editors at the New York Times aren't telling you to put peas in your guacamole or why the Aperol Spritz is a shitty drink, they're hiring our next panelist, Robert Simonson, who has been exploring the cultural history of cocktails, and his latest book, The Martini Cocktail, out now. So you guys, as you're being prolific drinks writers, the question we all hate, what are the trends and where is this going? And where has it gone, more importantly, in the years that you've been doing this?
I mean, do you want to start? Shall I start?
Yeah, you start. I was actually on a panel that Cara put together in Los Angeles last year, and it was about trends.
Oh, that's a good place to start. Yes,
yes
thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Talk about that.
Yeah, sure. So this was a panel about 2 years ago in Los Angeles at an event called BevCon, and we were asked to put together kind of a look ahead at what are we going to be drinking in 2020. So here we are, just on the cusp of 2020, and oddly enough, some of the things that we talked about actually came true. I mean, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. Some of those things were the incredible, unstoppable rise of agave spirits, tequila, mezcal. I mean, talk about chugging ahead. We talked about the rise of CBD and cannabis, which is getting also more attention every day. I mean, we're talking about legalization in Michigan and Illinois, and everyone's a little kind of afraid of what's coming after that. We talked about robots, cocktail robots.
I forgot about the robots.
Oh yeah, and the robots are coming. The robots are here. Yeah, there are actually some cocktail robots. I was actually in a bar in Cincinnati, and they actually had developed a robot to take your drink from the bartender and along the ceiling and deliver it to your karaoke room. in a bar called Tokyo Kitty.
Is there anybody in this room who likes that trend? You want robots to serve your cocktails?
I just don't want
No.
robots to make my cocktails. I'm firmly opposed to that one. And tariffs. We actually managed to correctly predict that tariffs were going to have a significant impact. So as far as cocktail and spirits crystal balls go, I think we did okay.
It was a pretty good crystal ball. It was,
Yeah.
and low ABV and no ABV cocktails.
Right.
Yes.
And those also are right. I know you have some interesting thoughts on.
Yes, well, I consider the no ABV cocktail the one single monolith, the unstoppable trend that won't go away, as much as I pray that it will go away and I don't have to write about it. The lengths to which I try not to write about this trend are amazing. But it's an interesting subject because it's undeniable. I went to an event recently in New York that was sponsored by Seedlip, which is a non-alcoholic spirit out there. It's the main non-alcoholic spirit that people are mixing into cocktails. And they were talking about the future of non-alcoholic cocktails. And they had a lot of impressive statistics. And these things have increased in popularity by double digits for a few years now. And if you go to a lot of cocktail bars, you probably noticed that 3 years ago there was like 1 or 2 on every menu. And today there's a page of non-alcoholic cocktails.
And sometimes entire bars.
We now
non-alcoholic
have
bars.
entire bars that serve non-alcoholic cocktails.
Do you consider those bars still?
Well, that's the question. I write about cocktails, I write about spirits, and I think of these things as being alcoholic. You know, it's like cocktails have alcohol in them. I know that cocktail can be treated in a general term, like, you know, you can have a cocktail of this, cocktail of pills, whatever. And so it's like a melange, it's a collection. But the definition that we all hew to from 1806 is that it has spirits in it. And so I've had this conversation with editors and fellow writers. Is this our job? Are we supposed to write about these things? Or should food writers write about this? I don't know. What do you think?
I think there's a place for it. I don't know that these non-alcoholic cocktail bars have a significantly different role than, say, a coffee shop. Mm-hmm. And I'm not writing about coffee shops, last I checked. But I still feel like there's certainly a role for non-alcoholic cocktails to play, absolutely, very much so. Mm-hmm. I mean, you go to bars and restaurants and you see them. I'm frequently out with people who will drink them. I don't think they should go away. I'm happy to write about them. I don't want to write about them exclusively, though.
No, I don't want them to go away, don't get me wrong. I was actually at a nice experience in Minneapolis recently. I was there about a year ago for a family event, and I was there with my older sister, and my older sister does not drink. But, you know, she's nice, and so she was willing to...
You hang out with her anyway.
She was willing to go to a couple cocktail bars with me because she knows that would make me happy. And so we went to a couple, and at each of them, there was a page of non-alcoholic cocktail options, and she was so happy, you know, is that she could be included and, you know, and order something. And in both cases, she thought that they were delicious. So that was actually the first time that I was happy about it, you know, and it's just like, yes, people can be, and it's all about inclusivity, basically. Like, people want to be part of the bar scene that felt they couldn't be because they weren't drinking or didn't want to drink.
Interesting.
It seems like, you know, a lot of the direction that's come about in the last 10 to 15 years had been coming from things within cocktail history in some ways, you know, either looking for ingredients that had been gone for a long time, or recipes or techniques that have been gone for a long time, and just kind of freshening those up and doing things and kind of presenting things in more flavorful direction. now that we see these other kinds of things going on in our larger culture, whether it's lower alcohol, no alcohol cocktails, CBD, we live in the era of White Claw now, and alcoholic seltzer. These are the kinds of things that, that step outside the boundaries that we're accustomed to working with. How are these going to continue to affect what we do in the years to come? And basically, looking further out, are we all still going to have a job in 10 years when it's all White Claw?
I'm waiting for the first ever White Claw hard seltzer only bar. When that happens, it's time for me to step off and call it a day.
Right.
No, oh my goodness. I don't think the cocktails are going away. Actually, one of the conversations I've been having over and over again is whether the cocktail renaissance is done. Is it done? Are we at the end of the road? And I think people tend to forget that it's a cycle. Just like there was a food renaissance and people have not stopped eating and it hasn't gone away. While alcohol is obviously an optional type of beverage, it's matured, but it hasn't gone away. It's not done. People are still innovating. People are still creating new spirits. People are still working on new cocktails, new techniques. I don't think we're over by a long shot, not at all. I'm glad that we were here for the run-up. I'm really glad about that. But I don't think cocktails are done at all. What do you think? You wrote the book on the cocktail renaissance.
Well, I think there's like two definitions to done. It's like in one case it is done in that we arrived. There was a cocktail revival and it lasted 10 or 20 years. And almost all the goals that the people involved in that renaissance tried to achieve were achieved. We got the fresh juice backs, we got the quality spirits, people learned the old recipes again. There were good cocktails on every corner. There were tiki bars came back, aperitivo bars came back. So it's like we won.
We did it, guys.
The other side, we did, we won. And the other side of that is that, okay, now what? It's like we're here, we've arrived, we got to Mount Everest, and
you're like the
do
dog
we just
who caught
climb
the car.
down? What?
You're like the dog who caught the car. Now what are you going to do?
Well, yeah, and from a journalist point of view, you think, oh my God, what do I write about now? It's like, because the editors all just want new stories, and what's new?
Well, sure, it's like we have to put out another issue, man.
Yeah, that's right.
There's definitely always an emphasis on novelty, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It is new.
Absolutely, and I think novelty. That's the thing that both plagues us and employs us all to some degrees is the trend story. 3 of things and it's a trend, and you have something to work with, something to put out there. But also, when we're talking about this a little bit at dinner, where it's beyond flavors and ingredients and approaches and spirits and things of that nature. Now we're kind of reaching a point where the cocktail has become normalized. Great cocktails have become normalized. Hotel bars, airport bars, restaurant bars. You can kind of see this everywhere. Is that where we're going now, where this is the new normal, and now we're figuring out, almost like food writers, how do we continue to find stories to tell within this realm?
Well, I was rolling this around in my head earlier today as I was getting ready for this event, and I was thinking about, there are certain trends that I feel in the cocktail world have been here for 2 or 3 years, and they're just like they came and they sat down and they said, we're not going. And one is no ABV, one is low ABV, and we have Japanese style bars, and then we have the dreaded White Claw and things like that. And so I thought, the cocktail bars came and everybody was happy, and here they are, but then everyone started to think about, how do I want to experience this bar? So a lot of these things are experiential. It's like we want to go to that cocktail bar. It's cool, it's fun, all the nice people are there, but maybe we don't want to drink as much. So let us come to your cocktail bar, but on our terms. A lot of these new trends are that, including the return of the highball, for instance. At least, I don't know, it's a theory, I'm working on it.
Right.
Can I talk about a trend I'd like to see go away?
Sure.
Wellness cocktail. Yes.
I would like to say that Cara rails against this on Twitter all the time, and I applaud her for doing it because it's a myth and a fallacy. So.
It needs to go away. It needs to go away now. Yeah. I don't think that they share the same space at all. the role of a cocktail, the role of alcohol is not to promote wellness, and we need to stop talking about how wheatgrass margaritas are going to cure our universe. It's not happening. It needs to go. Okay, I'm stepping down off my soapbox.
And if you have turmeric in your cocktail, it's suddenly a healthy cocktail.
No, I mean, it's pretty. I mean, it is Instagram's world.
Yeah, that's more about prettiness, I think.
Yeah, I don't. That's something I don't think is going away. The whole prettiness, visual. I mean, it is all about.
Well, we also live in the era of Instagram now, and then of the Instagram cocktail and the Instagram-driven cocktail menu, and the Instagram-driven cocktail bar. That's something that we're dealing with now, and that I have nothing against pretty things, but it's when that kind of artifice takes over from the craft of it, that it becomes a little bit more, I don't know, boring in a way.
Yeah, I think you can credit Instagram with the return of certain ingredients. Like you and I and others in this room, we railed against blue curacao and railed against Midori. But then Instagram came along and says, like, let's bring those colorful, pretty things back.
Right,
It's like they make things blue, they make things green, they make things gold. So
I don't mind blue curacao. I can get on board with blue curacao.
That's all right.
Someone in this room is going to create an artisanal blue curacao, and I'm going to be ready for it.
It's coming. I'm sure it's got to be there. It's got to be there almost.
It should have happened already.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
You're listening, Joe?
See, that's going to be the takeaway from this. Robert Simonson, blue curacao, artisanal blue curacao should have happened already.
I actually thought the same thought like 2 or 3 years ago. It's like, where is it? It's like, it hasn't been done. So.
You right now should be holding a blue drink to match your blue suit, and
get a turmeric drink to match the couch.
there you go.
Hey, Joe, you need a little more orange in this room, Joe. Yeah.
And also, I mean, like in terms of talking about kind of the normalization of good cocktails, where you can go to places that years ago would have just been, really you just go in and order order a beer or order just a shot or like whiskey on the rocks. Now you're seeing dive bars, more restaurant bars, chain bars that are at least learning how to turn out a handful of something decent, airport bars, things of that nature.
You can actually go. We were talking about this before. How you can actually go to Times Square and get a good drink, and it feels like a miracle.
Yeah, we never would have thought that was possible, but Times Square is turning into one of the better drinking areas in the city. It doesn't mean you have to go there, but if you do go there, like when your relatives come to town, there are like 6 or 7 excellent cocktail bars in that area. So I think we've actually covered all the neighborhoods in New York at this point. Yeah, so so it continues. I mean, I guess that's one of the trends. I mean, we don't write about it because it's not news anymore, is that the cocktail revival continues and new bars sprout everywhere in every metropolitan area.
And not even just metropolitan areas anymore.
Yeah.
When you see second-tier cities, smaller cities that will have at least one solid place for good drinks. That's really impressive when you go to some of the smaller cities, some of the smaller markets, and they just blow you away with the quality and the love and the attention that they're putting into it. That's really impressive as well.
Right.
Now that we're at this point where we're like, okay, so what's the trend? Does it free us from the bonds of the trend story in some way so that we can look at the bar world, the drinks world, and drinks culture, looking more at that culture side, looking more at the things that aren't necessarily here's the hot new thing that's coming, but kind of exploring the people and the cultures behind these. Does that give us a little bit more room, do you think?
I think it makes the human side of it more important than ever. I mean, it's more about the people who are making the drinks and interesting places to go, the cities, the places where the ingredients are made. I mean, it's actually paralleling the food world, I think, in a lot of ways. It's no longer just about, I'm going to go to Louisville and, it's a great scene. We're going to go have drinks. It's a fun place to go with bourbon. I think then it more becomes about who is making amazing drinks in garage bars and in their homes and little secret speakeasies in their homes. It's a lot more about the people who are making the spirits too. It becomes a lot more about human interest, I think.
Yeah.
You said the word speakeasy. I mean, that's kind of interesting. I mean, that was one of the first trends in the cocktail bar world, the speakeasy style bar, and it's really never gone away. And it's never stopped being popular. Usually when a new city starts venturing into the cocktail world, the first bar is a speakeasy. And I know lots of people, mainly people in the industry, they complain about this, but what do you think? I mean, is it okay to still have speakeasies, or should we have moved beyond it?
Well, it's also a matter of vocabulary, and as writers, we're always trying to find the right words to describe something, and we've been given speakeasy as the word to describe a small, intimate bar that has potentially some sort of, secrecy around it, even if it's only faux secrecy. Maybe we need more vocabulary. Maybe we need better words to describe what we're experiencing.
Yeah, there should be a different word for it at this point. Those bars that pretend they're in the 1920s but serve drinks from the 1890s.
Right.
Anachronism bars.
Right.
Let's call them time warp bars.
Right.
I like that.
Well, but also to bring it back to talking about how this kind of parallels food culture and food writing in some ways, where we're seeing kind of opportunities or directions to look more at the people who make spirits or the places that spirits come from and some of the stories that go along with those, whether it's with with agave in Mexico or with sugarcane in the Caribbean and the producers there, to kind of dig into that in ways that we hadn't before. But also, I think for us as drinks writers, it bears looking at what we do and the people in our ranks. I mean, the people who are represented here and the people who are working as drinks writers today are amazing people to work with, but we're all white, and we really need to kind of like open that up a little bit more and bring in more people of color, to bring in different cultures, to really kind of bring those experiences into this conversation in the ways that we do our jobs.
Mm-hmm. We've been having this talk about books as well, about how few people of color have cocktail books out right now. I mean, I see that changing. I mean, I see what's coming out in the next year or two, and that's definitely changing, and that's a good thing. But yeah, we need more inclusivity for sure across the board in terms of bringing more voices into the conversation, highlighting people who are doing interesting things.
Yeah.
We didn't want it to just be us talking up here, so we want to make sure that if you have questions or things you want to ask, things you want to consider, that we open it up to you as well. So we have a few minutes left with this panel. We have a microphone, and we have somebody over here. Here, me.
Oh boy, Phil Donahue on the move.
Phil Donahue pose.
I love it. I stole your line. I couldn't help it.
No, that's okay. Everyone knows Phil Donahue. Well, actually, they don't.
Thanks. Thank you very much for the conversation. I'm wondering, we're here in Louisville, in Kentucky, home to bourbon, et cetera. I'm wondering what role sort of regional histories, local flavors in terms of geography play beyond Kentucky. Is it important where things are made, or does the history influence the way the drinks, the spirits, even the cocktail cultures are? Is that something that we in Kentucky just sort of hold close, or is that something you see around the country, around the world?
So, I mean, if I'm understanding you right, you want to know if regional forces play a role beyond, except like Kentucky and other places? Yeah, well, I think they still do. I think to a certain extent, the cocktail revival sort of ruined that a little bit, because everybody was reading about the same stuff, learning about the same stuff, and serving the same stuff, so that you can like go to Los Angeles or New York or London or Shanghai and you'll get some of the same cocktails. But thankfully, a lot of those regional things, they do hang on. And it's not just here, it's other places. And I mean, the craft distillery movement has certainly helped, because local boosterism never ends. Everyone's proud of their local spirits, and they try to support them no matter where you go. But there are places like Maine and Wisconsin and New Orleans that drink a certain way and drink certain drinks that they don't drink anywhere else. And I hope that always is
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
case.
That's what makes it interesting, and that's what makes both our jobs interesting. Because I love martinis, I love Negronis, but I want to be able to drink something that is like what this city does, or even if it's even if it is a classic, the way that they present it differently. It wasn't until Last summer I was in Rochester, New York, up near Buffalo, and I noticed every bar was serving Manhattans on the rocks. I'm like, what the hell is? I mean, it wasn't even like people were calling it that way. That was just the default serve. And so, I mean, it's a little thing, but it's like, what the hell is going on in Rochester? Why it's here? But it's, but to see those kind of like little differences or big differences as you travel around, that's what keeps life interesting.
Before we change, there's actually going to be a book coming out next year by a man named Brian Bartels, in which he is writing about the drink trends in every single state, what they drink. I forget, it's like the United States of booze or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
And I read The Galley. You might like that book. Yeah.
My question actually piggybacks onto that question. And the question is, do you see a future in terroir-driven regional drinking? For example, Napa Valley is known for some particular type of wine. I don't know, because wine is a waste of time. But Western Massachusetts known for a holistic approach towards making cocktails with all their ingredients with regards to terroir?
I am seeing so much terroir going on in terms of spirits. I mean, I'm thinking of rye in particular. I mean, that's being grown in little micro lots all over the country. There was actually a great experiment done by Wiggle Whiskey where they compared rye grown and then distilled into whiskey, comparing Pittsburgh grown rye, I believe it was Minnesota grown rye, and then Saskatchewan, Canada grown rye. And I got to taste them side by side, and they really do taste different. And I think if you can find those kind of nuances in the raw spirit, I mean, absolutely, there's a way to elevate that into a regional cocktail in some way. I mean, I'm all jazzed about that.
Absolutely. I think, the rye is a good example. American single malt whiskey is a really good example. You're seeing some really cool stuff going on with that now. Gin, to a certain degree. I mean, sometimes it's gimmicky the way they'll do something regional, but sometimes it's really awesome the way they'll work in, some kind of local produce, some type of local flora into their gin. And that way, it's kind of cool to see. I think that's one thing. It's not, is it a trend or is it just kind of like a general direction that things are going? Whichever one it is, it's interesting. And it keeps this kind of lively and keep this kind of fun.
Do you think that's going with all the components of a cocktail's ingredients and not just the base spirits?
I think so, absolutely. I mean, in terms of, like produce, the kinds of juices, the kinds of floral ingredients that may be going into a cocktail. Absolutely, you see that everywhere of people turning to things, local produce, basically working the same way that the chefs have been in the restaurants, just going to that same kind of thing.
I think it's possible, but it's going to take a lot of effort, I think, to make a fully regional cocktail. But I would so love to have a flight of regional martinis, I say, looking at Robert, martinis with gins that include regional botanicals mixed with vermouths made from regional grapes and garnished with, appropriately regional citrus and/or other garnish. I would really be into that.
Cool. Other questions?
I'm done.
Where do you see CBD going? We're now starting to see CBD infused cocktails, CBD this, CBD that.
It's going everywhere for certain. I mean, where did this come from? I mean, 5 years ago, we never would have this conversation, and now it's everywhere you turn.
I disagree. I say CBD, ZZZZ.
Well, but that's the point for a lot of people.
I think, that's true. That's
Another
true.
story I don't want to write. So many stories I don't want to write.
I think CBD really took off because it was like the substitute for cannabis before it was fully legal, and I think as it's more fully legalized, I think CBD is going to drop right off the cliff.
I think that's an interesting take. I don't really agree with it, but it's just based simply upon the amount of money that's being invested into it right now.
There is a lot of money.
It's an
being
immense
invested
amount of
into it.
money going into it. So
Yeah.
stuff like that isn't going to fizzle quickly or go that easy.
We haven't had
Interactive
much
night.
exposure of it in New York. I mean, they were there for a while, and then the health department clamped down on it, and then they disappeared. So I know some people who are working on syrups to release commercially, I think.
Yeah.
I've tried a few. I mean, I haven't noticed a difference. So
Yeah. But I mean, just from the sheer amount of investment and enthusiasm and word of mouth or whatever you call it on Twitter now, I think there's a certain amount of level where it's just going to keep going for a while. It may eventually crash, but I don't think it's going to be anytime soon.
Okay.
So 3 differing takes on that question. Sorry, I thought you had a microphone that you were lifting up.
No, I just want. Don't worry, it's a softball.
Doesn't have to be.
Because this is the holiday season, I want to know your thoughts on the miracle bars and that whole phenomenon, and whether you think the drinks are good.
Is Greg Baum here?
Is that directed at anyone in particular?
No.
I think it's a
I
brilliant
think they're
business
wonderful.
concept.
And
And often the drinks are good, but I think it depends on the execution where you are. And they're different. Everyone loves a Christmas bar. I mean, it's amazing that someone has found yet another way to monetize Christmas and people love it.
But I'm a Christmas dork. I like the idea of it. I do a holiday drinks class every year. Next weekend, if you're in Seattle, holiday drinks that don't suck, our 9th year at Miracle. But I like the general idea. I haven't been to Miracle yet this year, so I haven't tried out the drinks. I can't say anything about them because I haven't yet. In the past years, some I've liked, some I haven't. But I like the general concept, and if bars are making some extra money at the holidays for their staff and for themselves,
that's important.
Sure, what the hell? Yeah.
I mean, running a bar is hard, and the profit margin is slim. And the Miracle bars, they make these bars money. And it's something I've heard people talk to me. They say it helps them get over the hump, and so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a Christmas miracle. And also, as far as the cocktails are concerned, they are good. They are good. I mean, these are not bad mixologists creating these cocktails. Most of the cocktails I've had at Miracle bars are delicious.
Yeah, and if you're getting a clientele who doesn't normally go to a craft cocktail bar, you get them to come in and have a good time. Maybe they'll come back in January. Maybe they'll come back in February. Maybe they'll start buying our books and follow this whole thing and keep us afloat.
Yeah.
So,
And as the concept goes to smaller and smaller markets, they experience that kind of wonder that I remember. You went to the original one, right? On
Yeah.
9th Street in the East Village.
Amazing.
Yeah, just stumbling upon that for the first time, it was like, oh my God, this is fantastic. It's like, I'm so happy. So,
People, in DC, where I live, people actually paid people to wait in line for them because the line would go down the block.
the DC ones are very successful.
Well, also, here's the thing about the Miracle bars. I did a story on them last year, so I got to ask lots of mildly inappropriate questions. And what I didn't realize is that as they've grown from just one in Manhattan to, I think it was 50 2 years ago, to now over 100 this year, it is, a hardcore franchise. They give each of their bars a playbook. They have recipes that they must have. They have rules that they must follow. And within those guidelines, they're allowed to customize it. Tell me if I'm getting any of this wrong. But if you don't like what they're doing, it may not be their fault. But they've been told exactly how to do it and how to monetize it. And it's a very specific thing that you may or may not like.
yeah. We probably have time for about one more question.
There's one, I see Jason.
Way
in the
back there.
Wait,
He doesn't? Is there a Miracle Bar in Louisville?
Yes, there is.
Hi. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
So there's been you were talking a lot about drink trends and covering and things like that, but what about the writing itself? Do you think drinks writing is the kind of thing that maybe there's a new, I don't know, you see like a new way, like younger people that are doing it differently, that are like there's a new, you know what I mean? Like food writing's really changed over the last few years. I wonder if drinks writing you're going to see change over the last years as well.
Well, I think it's always going to. That's just kind of it doesn't matter if it's about drinks or food or science or what have you. I think it's always just going to be changing. And I think we are at this point where, like with the cocktail renaissance, as we were saying earlier, where it kind of reaches a point, what's next, what's now. I think drink writing is kind of going parallel to that, where we're looking, as we're talking about up here, what are the kinds of stories that we can tell? What are the different kinds of, approaches that may not have been accessible in the past? I'm not entirely answering your question, but I'm trying to.
The main thing that's changed from my point of view is the influencers. And it's not necessarily writing, it's more of like an emphasis on the visual. And I'm not sure it's always to the benefit of people who are focusing on the words.
That's definitely a trend, the influencers. We didn't touch on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think food writers, to a certain extent, are students of the food writers who came before them. And they read them and they study that, and then they go from there. I'm not convinced that the drink writers, the younger ones that are coming up today, have read the people before them. I sometimes feel like they're just starting over and writing things that have been written before.
That's the kind of next generation story. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens, man.
Well,
All right. So I think we're about out of time for this panel. The way I think it's going to go, we're going to take a short little break. What you should do, grab a drink. More importantly, grab a book from back there. Come talk to one of us. I didn't introduce myself early on. I'm Paul Clarke. Hey. So grab a book. Grab one of their books, grab one of my books, have it signed, and then we will reconvene here in a few minutes with our next conversation. Thank you, everybody, for making this one not too scary for us.